Jack lived in a small apartment in the city with his 10-year-old daughter, Alina. Life hadn't been easy for them since his wife passed away 3 years ago. Jack worked long hours as a security guard during the night and cleaned office buildings early in the morning. His hands were always rough, his eyes always tired, but he smiled every time he saw Alina. Everything he did was for her. Their home was small and old, but filled with love. Alina had a gentle heart, always drawing, always smiling even when they had little. She had been asking for a dog for months, but Jack couldn't afford one. He'd just smile and promise her maybe one day. One cold evening, after finishing his shift at a bank, Jack took a shortcut through an alley near the train station. The air was heavy with fog, and the city lights glowed softly in the distance. As he walked, he heard a faint whimper. He stopped and looked around, shining his phone's flashlight down the dark alley. There, under a pile of wet cardboard, was a small golden puppy, shivering and scared. It looked well-fed but dirty, like it had been missing for a few days. Jack's heart ached as he saw the little creature. He bent down slowly and spoke gently. The puppy looked at him with wide, trusting eyes. Without thinking twice, Jack wrapped it in his coat and carried it home. When Jack opened the door to the apartment, Alina was sitting at the table working on her drawings. Her eyes lit up the moment she saw the puppy. She ran over, tears of joy filling her eyes. She gently touched the puppy's fur, whispering thanks as if it was a dream. That night, the three of them sat on the floor, giving the puppy a warm bath using the last clean towel they had. Alina named him Lucky. She said it was because he brought luck into their home. For the first time in a long time, Jack saw his daughter fall asleep with a real smile on her face. The next few days were full of joy. Alina woke up early to feed Lucky, walked him in the evenings, and even made him a small bed beside hers. She drew him in all her sketchbooks, calling him her best friend. Jack knew he had broken the building's no pets rule, but he couldn't take Lucky away. The change in Alina was too beautiful to stop. She laughed more, talked more, and even started helping Jack with chores just to have more time with Lucky. But everything changed when Jack walked past a street pole and noticed a missing dog poster. His heart dropped. The photo showed a well-groomed version of Lucky. The poster offered a reward of $100,000 for the safe return of the dog. The name printed below the photo was Leo, and the owner was Victoria Hart, CEO of a major tech company. Jack knew the name. She was all over the news. Rich, powerful, and known for never showing emotions. Jack stood frozen, reading the poster again and again. He looked at Lucky, then at the number printed below. $100,000 could change their lives forever. But the thought of taking Lucky from Alina shattered him. That night, Jack sat quietly while Alina fed Lucky some leftover chicken. She laughed when the puppy licked her cheek. Jack's heart was heavy with guilt. He knew he had to make a choice soon. Keeping Lucky meant breaking the law and going against a billionaire. Returning him meant breaking his daughter's heart. He thought about the hospital bills he still owed, the school shoes he couldn't buy last month, and the leaky faucet he had no time to fix. He picked up his phone and stared at the number on the poster. But he couldn't dial. Not yet. The next morning, as Jack walked Alina to school, he saw the same poster on more poles. The city was covered with them now. Lucky's face was everywhere. A van from a private security firm drove slowly through their street. Jack tightened his grip on the leash, trying not to panic. He turned the other way and took Alina through a different path. The world suddenly felt dangerous. Later that day, while wiping tables at a restaurant he cleaned, he heard the TV playing a news clip. Victoria Hart had announced that she was offering double the reward now, $200,000. The news anchor said the dog was more than a pet. It was her emotional support. "It's the only thing I come home to," Victoria had said in the video, her voice softer than people were used to hearing. Jack sat down in the staff room, staring at the floor. He had found more than a dog that night. He had found light in his daughter's eyes. But now he realized, this was not just a pet. They had taken something important from a woman who had everything, yet still felt alone. Jack didn't sleep that night. He watched Alina and Lucky snuggle on the couch. He stared at the ceiling, wondering how to protect the peace they had finally found. He didn't know what was coming next. But he could feel that soon, someone would come looking, and they wouldn't leave without Lucky. 2 days passed, and Jack lived every hour with a growing sense of fear. He started changing his route to work, avoiding cameras and crowded places. He avoided conversations and kept his head down. Every time someone looked twice at Lucky, his heart skipped a beat. Alina remained unaware. She only saw the joy of having her first real friend, and she made sure Lucky was fed, brushed, and loved. Jack couldn't bring himself to destroy her happiness. He kept telling himself he needed time to think, but deep down he was just afraid. The posters multiplied, and now social media was filled with photos of the billionaire Victoria Hart pleading for help. Her usual image of power and perfection was replaced with a woman who looked tired, heartbroken, and desperate. In one video clip, she clutched Lucky's collar in her hand and said he was more than just a dog. He was her family. Jack had never expected someone like her to love anything that deeply. It made him wonder what kind of life she really lived behind the cameras and money. Then one morning, as Jack was pouring coffee at the diner during his second shift, a tall woman in a sleek gray coat walked in. Her hair was perfectly done, her heels sharp against the old tile floor. She didn't look like she belonged there, but she sat at the counter and ordered a coffee. Jack tried to act normal, but when their eyes met, he knew. It was her, Victoria Hart. She didn't recognize him, of course. Why would she? He was just a tired man behind a counter. But Jack's hands shook as he filled her cup. She looked through her phone, barely speaking, but her presence made the air feel heavier. He wanted to hide, to disappear. He tried to convince himself she was just passing through. Then she said something that made him freeze. She mentioned how she was searching for something she lost, something no amount of money could replace. Jack swallowed hard and nodded. He couldn't respond. He just kept wiping down the same spot on the counter, hoping she would leave. But fate had other plans. That afternoon, Alina burst into the diner, her backpack bouncing, and Lucky at her heels. She had just come from school and wanted to show her dad the drawing she made. The puppy wagged his tail and ran through the door. Jack turned in horror, but it was too late. Victoria had seen him. The moment their eyes met, time stopped. She stood up quickly, knocking over her cup. Her face twisted between disbelief and hope. She called out the name, Leo, and Lucky turned his head, ears perking up. He recognized her voice. Jack tried to speak, but no words came. Alina stood frozen, confused, holding her sketchbook against her chest. Victoria dropped to her knees and opened her arms. The dog ran toward her without hesitation, tail wagging faster than ever. She held him tightly, burying her face in his fur as tears streamed down her face. The room fell silent. Jack stepped forward, trying to explain. He said they had found the dog in an alley, scared and cold. He said he was going to return him. He just needed time. Victoria stood up, still holding the dog, and looked at Jack. Her face was unreadable. She didn't yell. She didn't threaten. Instead, she looked at Alina, then back at Jack. The silence said everything. She understood what the dog had meant to them. She could see the bond that had formed, and her heart was torn between relief and confusion. Then, without a word, she left the diner with Lucky in her arms. Alina cried herself to sleep that night. Jack sat beside her, trying to comfort her, but nothing worked. The house felt empty without Lucky. The silence was loud. He felt like he had just lost a part of their small family. He kept thinking about Victoria's face, the way her hands shook, the tears she tried to hide. She hadn't been angry. She had looked human. The next morning, Jack got ready for work, moving slowly. He didn't know what would happen next. Maybe she'd call the police. Maybe she'd sue him. He didn't care. All he cared about was Alina's broken heart. But something unexpected happened. That evening, just as Jack was locking up the diner, a black car pulled up. Victoria stepped out, this time without bodyguards or cameras. She asked to talk. Jack nodded and led her to the booth where she had sat earlier. She told him she had seen what Lucky meant to Alina. She said she wasn't used to people being honest with her. Everyone in her world wanted something. But Jack had taken care of her dog without knowing who he belonged to, without asking for money. She didn't know what to do, because she saw the love her dog had for his new family, and it hurt to think about taking that away. Jack told her they never meant to steal him. They just wanted to give him a safe home. Victoria stayed quiet for a moment, then said something that changed everything. She proposed a shared custody arrangement. It sounded strange at first, but she was serious. She wanted to be in Lucky's life, but she didn't want to break Alina's heart. She offered to create a schedule, weekends with Alina, weekdays with her. She promised to cover the vet bills and even offered to help with Alina's school expenses. Jack didn't know what to say. No one had ever offered him kindness without expecting something in return. Victoria just wanted to do the right thing, not just for herself, but for the little girl who gave her dog a second chance at love. Jack agreed. He had nothing to lose and everything to gain. The weeks that followed were unlike anything Jack had imagined. Every Sunday afternoon, Victoria would come by the park near their home, where Jack and Alina waited with Lucky. The first few times were awkward. They didn't talk much. But over time, things changed. Victoria started bringing coffee from her fancy cafe. She asked Alina about school and even complimented her drawings. Alina, in return, began asking her about her job, her office, and her dog's favorite toys. Slowly, something strange and beautiful began to form, a friendship built on something real. Lucky would run between them, happy in both worlds. And Jack found himself smiling more, laughing more, even relaxing for the first time in years. But happiness never comes without its tests. Just when it felt like life was finding a new balance, a new storm began to rise, one that had nothing to do with the past, but everything to do with the secret Victoria was hiding. Jack didn't know it yet, but there was more to her story. Something deeper. Something she hadn't told anyone. Not even him. And soon, that secret would change everything they had built. Jack had started to believe that maybe, just maybe, things were finally falling into place. The shared arrangement with Victoria was working better than anyone had expected. Alina's smile returned. Lucky, now bouncing happily between two very different homes, was more than a pet. He had become a symbol of connection, healing, and unexpected friendship. Victoria continued to show up every Sunday at the park, sometimes staying longer, sometimes helping with Alina's homework or bringing new art supplies. Her cold, corporate armor seemed to melt in those moments. She laughed more, listened more, and seemed at ease in a way Jack hadn't seen in her public persona. Jack found himself looking forward to their conversations. They didn't talk about business or wealth. They talked about family, about life, and slowly began to understand each other beyond their labels. But just as their lives were weaving together like threads in a warm quilt, the storm came. It started quietly. A tabloid article with a photo of Victoria in the park, sitting on a bench with Jack and Alina. The headline screamed of scandal. Billionaire CEO's secret life revealed. At first, Jack didn't take it seriously, but then came the swarm. Reporters outside the diner, photographers near the school, even rumors about Jack being involved in some kind of plot to get close to Victoria for money. Strangers whispered when he walked past, and customers started avoiding the diner. Alina heard the whispers too, at school, in the neighborhood. Victoria, too, came under fire. Her board questioned her decisions. Investors raised concerns about her priorities. She was being pulled in two directions, one toward the life she had always known, full of power and image, and the other toward the real, messy life she had started building with Jack and Alina. Jack tried to shield Alina from the chaos, but she could see the stress written on his face. The joy that had returned to their home was beginning to crack under the pressure. Victoria stopped coming to the park for a few weeks. She sent short messages, updates about Lucky, but something had changed. Jack knew it wasn't her fault, but he also knew she was being forced to choose. One evening, after putting Alina to bed, he sat alone in the kitchen, staring at the last drawing she made, one of their family, with Victoria in it too, and Lucky in the middle. He realized how much had changed in just a few months. He realized he didn't want to lose what they had found. But he also knew it wasn't his decision alone. Then, one day, Victoria came back, not in a car, not with guards or assistants, but alone, wearing jeans and a soft sweater. She looked tired, but determined. She asked Jack if they could talk. She told him the truth, the secret she had been carrying. It wasn't just that Lucky had been her support in lonely times. It was that her world, the one built on wealth and control, had never been real. She had grown up in a house where love was a transaction, where mistakes were punished with silence. The reason she cared so deeply for Lucky wasn't just emotional, it was because he was the first being she ever truly cared for without fear of judgment. Losing him made her realize how empty her life had become. And finding him again, seeing the way he connected with Alina, showed her what she had been missing all along, real love, the kind that doesn't need grand gestures or public approval. Jack listened, quietly, feeling the weight of her words. He understood more than she knew. He, too, had lived in a world that demanded he keep his pain to himself, smile when he was struggling, stay strong even when he was breaking. But now they were both standing in a place between their pasts and their future, with a choice to make. Victoria told him she was stepping back from her role as CEO. She had handed over the reins to someone else and was taking time to figure out who she really wanted to be. She didn't know what the future looked like, but she knew she wanted to be a part of theirs, if they would let her. The weeks that followed brought new beginnings. Victoria began helping at the diner, not in a showy way, but in simple ways, serving coffee, cleaning tables, learning the names of the regulars. The gossip faded. The media moved on. What was left behind was a quiet, growing sense of peace. Jack and Alina began building new traditions with Victoria. Friday movie nights, cooking together, walking Lucky in the evenings without fear. Alina no longer drew pictures of a family she hoped for, now she drew the one she had. Victoria wasn't just a visitor anymore. She became part of the rhythm of their days. Months passed. The city changed with the seasons. Jack still worked hard, but not with the same weight on his shoulders. Alina thrived in school, often telling her classmates about her dog and her second mom who used to be super rich but now makes the best pancakes. Victoria, once known only for boardrooms and news headlines, now found joy in the simple things, watching Alina paint, playing fetch with Lucky, and sitting quietly at the diner counter talking with Jack. Their life wasn't perfect. It was real, and that made all the difference. One evening, as the sun set and the city lights began to glow, Jack stood by the window watching Alina and Lucky play in the courtyard. Victoria joined him, a soft smile on her face. Without words, they both knew they had found something rare, something worth holding on to. Not built on money or fame, but on trust, healing, and love. A struggling father, a lost dog, and a billionaire with a secret had somehow created a story neither of them could have written alone. And as Lucky barked happily in the distance, the future looked bright, full of hope, full of new chapters waiting to be written together.